The day we said enough, the final stand ambassador. Sarah Chen walked through the gleaming corridors of Station Prime, her footsteps echoing in the vast halls that had witnessed 3 centuries of galactic diplomacy. The station orbited the neutral, star-conquered, serving as the beating heart of the Galactic Council. Today it would witness something unprecedented in its long history. Sarah carried a simple briefcase in her left hand. Inside were the documents that would either save humanity's place in galactic civilization or end it forever. Her right hand rested on her communication device, ready to send the signal that would change everything. The council chamber stretched before her like a cathedral of power. 12 species sat in their designated sections, each area designed to accommodate their unique physiologies. The Saurics occupied the heated section, their reptilian forms coiled on warming stones. The Nebula Collective existed as glowing clouds of sentient gas in their containment fields. The crystalline Prism Empire reflected the chamber's lights in dazzling patterns. All of them looked down at the human-speaking platform, literally. The platform was positioned lower than every other seat, a subtle reminder of humanity's junior status in the council. "Honored representatives," Sarah began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber's acoustics. "I stand before you today not as a supplicant, but as the voice of humanity itself." Chancellor Vextar of the Saurix Empire flicked his forked tongue impatiently. His scales were a deep purple, indicating his advanced age and political power. "Ambassador Chen, we have granted you this emergency session despite your species' recent emotional outbursts. State your business quickly." Sarah opened her briefcase and pulled out a data tablet. 72 hours ago, the human colony of New Perth was attacked by raider forces. Over 4,000 civilians died while council security forces were delayed. The chamber erupted in whispers and alien sounds of discussion. The aquatic depths representative, a being that resembled a massive octopus, spoke through its translator. "Regrettable, but these attacks happen throughout council space. Security forces cannot be everywhere. Cannot or will not." Sarah's voice cut through the chamber like a blade, because human distress signals were received by 3 separate council battle groups. The nearest was only 4 hours away, yet they arrived 48 hours after the attack began. The Nebula Collective's representative, a swirling mass of golden gas, spoke in harmonious tones. "The Saurix command structure required proper authorization protocols. Chain of command exists for good reasons." Sarah held up her tablet, and holographic displays filled the chamber. The images showed the destruction of New Perth in brutal detail: burned buildings, craters where homes once stood, memorial markers for the dead. The alien representatives shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "While your authorization protocols were being processed," Sarah said, her voice steady despite the emotion in her eyes, "human families were being murdered, human children were being orphaned, human dreams were being turned to ash." Chancellor Vextar's tail lashed impatiently. "Tragic, yes, but hardly unprecedented. Your species has been part of the Council for only 2 centuries. We have maintained peace for over 2 millennia. Trust our experience." "Your experience," Sarah repeated, slowly. "Let me share some facts about human experience in the Council." New holographic displays appeared showing statistics and charts. Humans comprise 8% of Council population, but contribute 62% of technological innovations. We provide 47% of all military personnel below command rank. Our scientists have solved 34 of the last 40 major crises facing Council worlds. The Prism Empire's representative, a creature that looked like living crystal, chimed in musical tones. "Your contributions are acknowledged and appreciated. This is why humanity holds junior partnership status rather than being classified as a protectorate species." Sarah smiled, but it was not a pleasant expression. Junior partnership. After 2 centuries of service, we are still considered junior partners. Despite our contributions, humans hold only 1% of council leadership positions. We are consulted on policy but never permitted to vote on it. The chamber's atmosphere grew tense. The alien representatives began to realize this was not a typical diplomatic protest. Humans have requested equal representation 17 times. In the past 50 years, Sarah continued. Each request was denied. We have requested investigation into delayed response times to human colonies. These requests were ignored. We have asked for the right to defend our own worlds. We were told this would upset the balance of power. Chancellor Vextar rose from his warming stone. His impressive height meant to intimidate. Young species must learn patience. The Council has responsibilities beyond your narrow human perspective. We cannot— Enough! Sarah's voice boomed through the chamber, amplified by hidden speakers. For the first time in centuries, a human had shouted in the council chamber. The alien representatives recoiled in shock. We are done learning patience, Sarah said, her voice returning to normal volume, but carrying deadly certainty. We are done accepting second-class citizenship. We are done watching our people die while you debate authorization protocols. She pulled out her communication device and held it where every representative could see. This is humanity's final offer. Grant us equal representation in the Council, equal protection for our colonies, and the right to defend ourselves. Or, we leave. The chamber erupted in chaos. Representatives from 12 species began arguing simultaneously. The Saurix hissed in anger. The Nebula Collective swirled frantically. The Aquatic Depths representative released clouds of what their translator called words of extreme displeasure. You cannot leave, Chancellor Vextar shouted above the noise. The Council does not permit withdrawal of member species. Sarah pressed a button on her device. As of this moment, humanity withdraws from all Council agreements, treaties, and obligations. We are no longer bound by Council law or authority. This is madness. The Prism Empire's representative flashed colors of alarm. Your species will not survive outside Council protection. We survived for 200,000 years before meeting you, Sarah replied calmly. We will survive without you. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. 12 species that had never imagined losing their most productive member suddenly faced that exact reality. You are making a terrible mistake, the Nebula Collective warned. Isolation will destroy your species. Maybe, Sarah admitted, but slavery was destroying us faster. She touched her communication device again and spoke clearly. Exodus protocol is now active. All humans return to Sol system immediately. The great exodus begins across the galaxy. Every human suddenly stopped what they were doing. Dr. Elena Vasquez was in the middle of synthesizing a cure for the Rigelian plague when her communication device chimed with the Exodus code. She immediately began packing her research and destroying anything too dangerous to leave behind. Captain Rebecca Reaper Morrison was commanding the Council flagship Harmony when the signal arrived. She calmly handed command to her Saurix, second in command, and walked to the shuttle bay with her entire human crew. Teacher David Park was in the middle of explaining quantum mechanics to a class of mixed-species students on the education world of Scholara when his device chimed. He finished his sentence, wished his students well, and left the classroom forever. The aliens watched in growing horror as the humans simply left. No arguments, no negotiations, no gradual transition. One moment they were there, the next, they were gone. On Station Prime, the Council representatives watched through the observation windows as human transport ships began arriving. Sleek vessels designed by human engineers, powered by human technology, crewed by humans who had been building Council infrastructure for decades. This is impossible, whispered the Aquatic Depths representative. They cannot have organized this so quickly. Sarah smiled as she watched the evacuation ships dock. We have been preparing for this day for 18 months. Every human in Council space knew this moment might come. We were ready. Chancellor Vextar's tail lashed violently. Your scientists are abandoning critical research. Your engineers are leaving half-built projects. Your doctors are abandoning patients. Our scientists are taking their research home, Sarah corrected. Our engineers are taking their knowledge with them. Our doctors are transferring their patients to alien colleagues who dismiss their methods as primitive human intuition. The reality of the situation began to sink in. The Council had never considered that humans might leave voluntarily. They had assumed human dependence on Council protection would keep them in line forever. "You are condemning your own species to extinction," the Prism Empire's representative chimed desperately. "Without Council technology, without Council trade, without Council protection, without Council restrictions," Sarah interrupted. "Without Council condescension, without Council prejudice. We will see what humanity can accomplish when we stop trying to please masters who never intended to treat us as equals." The first wave of human evacuation ships began departing Station Prime. Their formation was perfect, their coordination flawless. The aliens had forgotten that humans were not just good at building and fixing things. They were excellent at organizing and executing complex operations. "Please reconsider," the Nebula Collective pleaded. "Perhaps we can discuss modifications to your status." "The time for discussion ended with the children of New Perth," Sarah said firmly. "We offered negotiations 17 times. We offered compromise. We offered patience. What we got was contempt." She picked up her briefcase and walked toward the exit. "When you are ready to treat us as equals, you know where to find us. Until then, the galaxy is yours." The massive chamber fell, silent as Sarah's footsteps echoed through the hall. The most productive species in the Council was walking away, and there was nothing their former masters could do to stop them. Immediate consequences. Within 6 hours of Sarah's declaration, the galaxy began to crack. The Council's most advanced research station, Omega Labs, went dark when its entire human staff vanished. The facility's alien researchers discovered that while they had access to human-designed equipment, they had no idea how to maintain or operate it. The Transcendent Highway, the galaxy's primary trade route, descended into chaos. Human logistics. Coordinators had been managing the flow of millions of ships through complex scheduling algorithms. Without them, collisions became common and delivery times tripled overnight. On the military front, the situation was even worse. The Council's elite fighting force, the Peacekeepers, was 47% human. When they left, they took with them not just their fighting skills but their tactical knowledge, their training protocols, and their innovative approaches to warfare. Chancellor Vextar found himself staring at reports that painted a picture of galactic civilization beginning to crumble. "How did we become so dependent on them?" he asked his aide. "Because they were competent," the aide replied, "and because they were willing to do the work others found beneath them." The Saurix Chancellor's tail lashed in frustration. They were junior partners. They knew their place. "Apparently," the aide said carefully, "they did not agree with our assessment of their place." In the depths of space, the human evacuation fleet moved with purpose toward the Sol system. Their ships carried not just people but the knowledge and skills that had made galactic civilization possible. They carried the memories of being treated as second-class citizens despite their contributions. Most importantly, they carried the determination to prove that humanity could not just survive without the Council, they could thrive. The galaxy was about to learn that taking people for granted was a luxury they could no longer afford. The galaxy burns without. 3 months later, the emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in a chamber that looked very different from the one Sarah Chen had walked out of 3 months earlier. The observation windows showed the construction scaffolding that surrounded Station Prime, evidence of the ongoing repairs that had been necessary since the human engineers left. Chancellor Vexitar looked older than his considerable years. His purple scales had dulled, and his tail hung limp with exhaustion. Around him, the other Council representatives showed similar signs of strain. "The situation reports," he began, his voice hoarse from sleepless nights, "make for disturbing reading." The Nebula Collective's representatives swirled in agitated patterns. "Our atmospheric processors on 17 worlds are operating at 43% efficiency. Without human maintenance protocols, we are facing cascading system failures," the Aquatic Depths representative released bubbles of distress. "Our deep space communication network has 17% uptime. We can barely maintain contact between our home systems." "The economic reports are even worse," added the Prism Empire's representative, their crystalline structure flickering with anxiety. Galactic trade volume has decreased by 62%. Several star systems are facing shortages of basic necessities. Chancellor Vextar pulled up a holographic display that showed the galaxy's current state. Red zones indicated critical failures. Yellow zones showed declining systems, and green zones revealed areas still functioning normally. The display was overwhelmingly red and yellow. We have systematically lost functionality in every major system that humanity helped design or maintain, he admitted. But surely other species can adapt to fill these roles. The crystalline collective's representative, a being that resembled living geometry, spoke in mathematical harmonies. Analysis indicates that humans possessed unique problem-solving methodologies. They approached challenges with what they called creative thinking and outside-the-box solutions. Other species follow established protocols. Humans invented new ones. A new voice entered the discussion. Admiral Korthak of the Void Runners, a species of energy beings, materialized in the chamber. His presence was unscheduled, which indicated emergency. Council members. Korthak's voice crackled with electrical energy. I bring news from the Outer Rim. The Devourers have begun their invasion. The chamber erupted in panic. The Devourers were an ancient enemy, mechanical entities that consumed entire planets to fuel their expansion. They had been dormant for over a century, but recent intelligence suggested they were awakening. Impossible, Chancellor Vextar hissed. Our defense perimeter would have detected their approach weeks ago. Admiral Korthak's energy form flickered, with what might have been the equivalent of a grimace. Our defense perimeter has been operating at 38% capacity since the humans left. The Devourers slipped through the gaps in our sensor coverage. How many ships? Asked the Aquatic Depths representative. Preliminary reports suggest over 10,000 vessels. They have already consumed 3 uninhabited systems and are moving toward the frontier colonies. The reality of the situation hit the Council like a physical blow. They were facing their greatest threat in over a century with their defenses crippled by the loss of humanity. Activate emergency protocols, Chancellor Vextar ordered. Mobilize all available fleets. Admiral Korthak's form flickered uncertainly. Chancellor, our tactical computers are operating with outdated programming. The humans maintained and upgraded our strategic systems continuously. Without them, our battle coordination is primitive. The plague crisis, while the Council grappled with military disaster, another crisis was unfolding in Sauric space. A plague had broken out on the industrial world of Forge Prime, and it was spreading rapidly through the reptilian population. Dr. Sintar, the Saurix Empire's chief medical officer, stared at the test results with growing horror. The disease attacked the nervous system in a way that was fatal to reptilian physiology. His medical team had tried every treatment in their database, but nothing was working. How many infected? He asked his assistant. 4 million and rising. The disease is spreading through the ventilation systems of our underground cities. We estimate total planetary infection within 2 weeks. Dr. Sintar knew there was one person in the galaxy who might be able to help, but contacting her would require swallowing pride that had been building for over 2 centuries. On Earth, Dr. Elena Vasquez was working in her new laboratory in the rebuilt city of New Geneva. She had been analyzing the same plague that was devastating Sauric space. Her research had led to a breakthrough that could save millions of lives. Her communication console chimed with an incoming message from Sauric space. The message was brief and carefully worded. Dr. Vasquez, we are experiencing a medical crisis that matches your expertise. Would you be willing to discuss potential consultation arrangements? Elena stared at the message for a long time. She remembered the Saurix medical establishment dismissing her work as primitive organic thinking when she had presented her research on neural diseases. They had been particularly critical of her unconventional approaches to treatment. She drafted a reply. I am aware of the plague in your space. I have developed a potential treatment. However, I am no longer subject to council authority and am not obligated to share my research freely. The response came within minutes. What would you require for your assistance? Elena smiled grimly. An acknowledgement that human medical science is not primitive, a formal apology for the dismissive treatment of human researchers, and a guarantee that human medical personnel will be treated with equal respect if we provide it. The reply took much longer. We cannot make such commitments without council approval. Elena's final response was shorter. Then I hope your pride provides comfort to the dying. She never received another message from Soric space. The plague continued spreading, and within 2 months over 12 million reptilians had died from a disease that human medicine could have cured. Economic collapse. The galactic economy was in free fall. The Merchant Guild's chairman, a crystalline, collective entity named Facet, was reviewing reports that painted a picture of complete systemic failure. Shipping efficiency has decreased by 73%, his aide reported. Human logistics coordinators managed cargo flows with algorithms that we cannot reproduce. Current coordination relies on basic scheduling that creates massive bottlenecks. Facet's crystalline structure flickered with frustration. Can we not simply hire more coordinators from other species? We have tried. The complexity of managing interstellar shipping with multiple species, different cargo requirements, and variable travel times requires a level of adaptive thinking that humans excelled at. Other species follow established patterns, but cannot adapt quickly to changing conditions. The aide pulled up a holographic display showing trade routes throughout the galaxy. Additionally, human merchants had established trust relationships with thousands of suppliers and buyers. These relationships were personal and cannot be easily transferred. Facet considered this. Contact the human merchants directly. Offer them lucrative contracts to return to their positions. We have tried. They have uniformly declined. Several have established their own trade networks operating exclusively in human space. The implications were staggering. Not only had the galaxy lost its most efficient logistics coordinators, but those coordinators were now competing with the galactic economy using their superior knowledge and methods. What about the worlds facing food shortages? Facet asked. 7 star systems are experiencing critical shortages. Human agricultural consultants had optimized their food production systems. Without proper maintenance, these systems are producing 40% normal yields. Facet flickered with what might have been despair. And the human agricultural consultants? They are busy feeding the influx of returning humans to Earth and its colonies. They have no surplus to export. The Void War, the war against the Devourers, was going badly. Admiral Korthak commanded the largest fleet in Council history, but the battles were disasters. The Devourers had adapted their tactics since the last war, but the Council's strategic thinking had not evolved. In the command center of the flagship Invincible, Admiral Korthak stared at the tactical display showing the aftermath of the Battle of Kepler's Gate. The Council had lost 30% of their ships while destroying only 5% of the Devourer fleet. Admiral, his tactical officer reported, the Devourers are using formations we have never encountered. Our combat computers cannot predict their movements. Korthak knew that human tactical advisors had always excelled at reading enemy patterns and adapting quickly to new threats. Human commanders had an intuitive understanding of warfare that other species struggled to replicate. What about the reinforcements from the outer systems? Korthak asked. They are having difficulty coordinating with our main fleet. The human communication protocols that allowed seamless cooperation between different species have not been properly maintained. The Admiral's energy form flickered with frustration. Send a message to the Council. We need to consider alternative options. Sir, we need to contact the humans. Desperate measures. The secret meeting took place on a neutral station in the Vega system. Chancellor Vextar had traveled there personally, something that would have been unthinkable 3 months earlier. Across from him sat President Maria Santos, the newly elected leader of the human Commonwealth. President Santos was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that had seen too much suffering. She had been elected on a platform of human independence and self-determination. She was not inclined to make things easy for the Council. Chancellor, she said politely, you requested this meeting. I am listening. Vextar's pride warred with necessity. Madam President, the galaxy is facing multiple crises. Perhaps we could discuss cooperation. Cooperation. President Santos repeated thoughtfully. That is an interesting word. When we were part of the council, we called it serving our betters. The humans were valued members of the council, Vexitar protested. Valued enough to be denied equal representation for 2 centuries. Valued enough to watch our colonies burn while authorization protocols were processed. Vexitar's tail lashed once before he controlled it. The past cannot be changed, but the future remains unwritten. President Santos leaned forward. Indeed it does. The question is whether the council is ready to write that future as equals rather than as masters and servants. What would humanity require for renewed cooperation? Vexitar asked carefully. Full membership in the council with equal voting rights. Formal recognition of human technological and cultural contributions. Compensation for the centuries of unpaid labor. And guarantees that human colonies will receive equal protection. The Chancellor's eyes widened. Those terms are significant. They are the minimum requirements for us to consider rejoining a system that treated us as expendable for 2 centuries. Vexitar was quiet for a long moment. The other council members would find such terms difficult to accept. President Santos stood up. Then I suggest you discuss it with them. Meanwhile, the human commonwealth will continue building its own future. She paused at the door. Chancellor, your species has a saying about not knowing the value of something until it is gone. Perhaps it is time your council learned the truth of those words. The reckoning. 3 days after the meeting, the Devourers broke through the council's last defensive line. They were now only 2 jumps away from the heavily populated core worlds. The plague in Sauric space had spread to 6 different worlds. The galactic economy was collapsing as trade routes became increasingly unreliable. Chancellor Vexitar called an emergency session of the council. The chamber was darker now. The human-designed lighting systems had failed, and replacement parts were not available. Fellow council members, he began, we face a choice. We can maintain our pride and watch our civilization collapse, or we can acknowledge that we made a mistake. The Nebula Collective swirled in agitated patterns. You are suggesting we capitulate to human demands? I am suggesting we acknowledge reality, Vexitar replied. We built our civilization on the assumption that other species would always be available to serve our needs. We forgot that service freely given is different from service demanded. The Prism Empire's representative flickered with uncertain light. But if we grant the humans equal status, other species might demand the same. Perhaps they should, Vexitar said quietly. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. The council had been built on a hierarchy that placed older species above newer ones, advanced civilizations above primitive ones. Granting equality to humanity would mean acknowledging that the entire system was flawed. The alternative, Vexitar continued, is to continue watching our civilization crumble while the humans build a new one. The Aquatic Depths representative released bubbles of resignation. The humans are no longer dependent on us. They have proven they can survive and thrive without the council. The question is whether we can survive without them. The vote was close, but it passed. The Galactic Council would offer humanity full membership with equal rights. Whether humanity would accept remained to be seen. As the council members departed, each lost in their own thoughts, the galaxy continued its slow descent into chaos. The Devourers advanced toward the core worlds. The plague spread through Sauric space. The economy continued its collapse. And in the Sol system, humanity continued building something new, a civilization based on mutual respect rather than hierarchical dominance. Whether they would choose to save their former masters remained the galaxy's greatest question. The council had learned that respect could not be demanded or assumed. It had to be earned, and sometimes it had to be lost before anyone realized its true value. But they had learned this lesson almost too late. The galaxy burned, and only humanity had the power to put out the fire. The question was whether they would choose to do so, and if they did, what price they would demand for salvation. The age of human subservience was over. The age of human ascendancy had begun.